Welcome, fellow travelers through the liturgical year. This is Lisa Davis with another Feast Day Quick Take on the feast of Our Lady of Ransom. The word ransom, used as a noun, is defined as, quote, a sum of money or other payment demanded or paid for the release of a prisoner. Used as a verb, it's the, quote, action of obtaining the release of a prisoner by making a payment that has been demanded. Today's feast day sheds special light on a facet of the character of the Blessed Mother that is sometimes overlooked or misunderstood. She is not just our mediatrix, she is our reparatrix. She not only mediates, she repairs. Make note that ix on the end of a Latin word indicates that it is a shared role. It means co or together with. In this case, of course, our Blessed Mother acts together with Christ her Son. In his encyclical, Ad Diem Illum, Pope St. Pius X stated it this way, quote, by the union of will and suffering between Christ and Mary, she merited to become in a most worthy manner the reparatrix of the lost world, and consequently the dispensatrix of all gifts which Jesus acquired for us through his death and blood. Indeed, we do not deny that the distribution of these gifts belongs by strict and proper right to Christ, yet it was granted to the august Virgin to be, together with her only begotten Son, the most powerful mediatrix and conciliatrix of the whole world. So Christ is the source. Mary, however, as St. Bernard justly remarks, is the channel. End quote. Our Blessed Mother is the mediatrix of all grace. Such a fitting vocation for Our Lady, the Queen of Heaven, since she is the most perfect and caring of mothers, practical and ever vigilant, a genius of resources and talents, and ever anxious to save and protect her children. Our Blessed Mother knows how to get jobs done by using us. As St. Teresa of Avila explained it, our hands are the hands with which God blesses all the world. Ours are the feet, ours are the eyes with which he looks compassion on this world. Christ has no body now on earth but ours. And St. Catherine of Siena says, God made us without our help. He will not save us without our help. God could snap his fingers, so to speak, and solve all of our problems in an instant. But he seldom operates that way, and neither does his mother. Instead, they send grace, spiritual aid, and special human envoys sometimes, and then they leave the hands-on work to the church militant. We ourselves can teach the young, nurse the sick, aid the poor, visit the imprisoned, or support temporally and spiritually those who do these things. And in so doing, we are not only acting as the hands and feet of God to help others, but we sanctify our own souls in the process. And our Blessed Mother is always working behind the scenes to further the corporal and spiritual works of mercy amongst us. Sometimes, however, bigger tasks arise that require more of the Blessed Mother's personal intervention. To spread her message of prayer and sacrifice in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, for instance, Our Lady appeared to the simple children at La Salette and Fatima to stem the tide of sin in the rapidly corrupting modern era. And at Lourdes she appeared to humble St. Bernadette to repeat the message of the Rosary and affirm the Church's official proclamation of the dogma of the Immaculate Conception. These most recent apparitions are probably the most familiar to Catholics. But 600 years before these intercessions, warning us against modern scourges of evil, the Blessed Mother interceded for her children during the Mohammedan invasion of the Christian world. By instigating the formation of the Order of the Ransom of Captives, she mediated, in as hands-on a way as she ever has in history, not only for the soldiers captured in the Crusades, but for the many innocent bystanders swept up in the tide of the Saracen pirates, who stole civilians from port towns and captured ships in order to sell them into slavery to fund their continued attacks. The Roman Breviary tells the tale, quote, At the time when the Saracen yoke oppressed the larger and more fertile part of Spain, and great numbers of the faithful were detained in cruel servitude at the great risk of denying the Christian faith and losing their eternal salvation, the most blessed Queen of Heaven graciously came to the remedy of these great evils and showed her exceeding charity in redeeming her children. She appeared with beaming countenance to Peter Nolasco, a man conspicuous for wealth and piety, who in his holy meditations was ever striving to devise some means of helping the innumerable Christians living in misery as captives of the Moors. She told him it would be very pleasing to her and her only begotten son if a religious order were instituted in her honor, whose members should devote themselves to delivering captives from Turkish tyranny. Animated by this heavenly vision, the man of God was inflamed with burning love, having but one desire at heart. In other words, that both he and the order he was to found might be devoted to the exercise of that highest charity, the laying down of life for one's friends and neighbors. That same night, the Most Holy Virgin appeared also to Blessed Raymond of Pennafort and to James, King of Aragon, telling them of her wish to have the order instituted and exhorting them to lend their aid to so great an undertaking. Meanwhile, Peter hastened to relate the whole matter to Raymond, who was his confessor, and finding that it had already been revealed to him from heaven, submitted humbly to his direction. King James arrived next, fully resolved to carry out the instructions he had also received from the Blessed Virgin. Having therefore taken counsel together, and being all of one mind, they set about instituting an order in honor of the Virgin Mother, under the invocation of Our Lady of Mercy for the ransom of captives. On the 10th of August in the year of our Lord 1218, King James put into execution what the two holy men had planned. The members of the order bound themselves by a fourth vow to remain, when necessary, as security in the power of the pagans, in order to deliver Christians. The king granted them license to bear his royal arms upon their breast, and obtained from Pope Gregory IX the confirmation of this religious institute, distinguished by such eminent brotherly charity. God himself gave increase to the work through his Virgin Mother, so that the order spread rapidly and prosperously over the whole world. It soon reckoned many holy men, remarkable for their charity and piety, who collected alms from Christ's faithful to be spent in redeeming their brethren, and sometimes gave themselves up as ransom for many others, in order that due thanks might be rendered to God and his Virgin Mother for the benefit of such an institution. The Apostolic See allowed this special feast and the office to be celebrated, and also granted innumerable other privileges to the order. The original and entire title of this religious institution was the Religious Order of Our Lady of Mercy for the Ransom of Captives. It was originally peopled by more knights than clerics, having been founded literally during the Crusades in the Holy Land, and its quest was a holy and practical one, specific to the day. The clerics were charged with the celebration of the divine office in the ranks. The knights guarded the coasts, and undertook the perilous enterprise of ransoming Christian captives." End quote. St. Peter Nolasco, who died in 1256 and whose feast day is January 28th, was the first commander or general of the order. He was never ordained a priest, but he obeyed with perfect piety the vows of the Mercedarians as the order came to be known. The following 7 leaders of the Mercedarians were also chosen from amongst the knights, but thereafter clerics became more commonly chosen as order generals, and in 1318, 50 years after the end of the Crusades, Pope John XXIII decreed that the leader of the Mercedarians should henceforth always be an ordained priest. It is the tradition of the order that the Blessed Mother dictated that the habit of the order be white, and to this day a Mercedarian wears a wide leather belt with a chain, suggesting the sword that all members once carried. According to the records of the order, since their founding, the Mercedarians have ransomed approximately 70,000 prisoners, including the 2,700 during the lifetime of St. Peter Nolasco. In the first century of its operation, martyrdoms amongst its religious numbered over 100, and the sacrifices continued through the centuries, including 33 Mercedarian friars who were martyred during the Spanish Civil War. Sadly, the Mercedarians now operate under the auspices of the Conciliar Church, and as far as I can ascertain, their function as ransomers has come to a complete halt, which should come as no surprise, considering the leader of their religion believes Muslims worship the same God as he does. After Vatican II, in fact, early in the era of false ecumenization, and what seems to be an attempt to erase the history of the order that unapologetically named Mohammedism as the enemy of the Church and of all souls, the Conciliar Church changed the name of the feast day to Our Lady of Mercy. The Feast of Our Lady of Ransom is no longer included in their calendar, and the Feast of Our Lady of Mercy has no tie whatsoever with the Mercedarian Order founded by Our Lady through St. Peter Nolasco. But the need for ransoms, for rescues, is as desperate today as it was at the time of the Crusades. Christians all over the world suffer real persecution from the Muslim scourge. Far worse than being, quote, canceled on social media, Christians in Afghanistan are known to be captured, sold as slaves, tortured, and killed. In August of 2021, the Taliban, which is the common term for the hardcore Muslim government now in effect, began its rule in Afghanistan when the American troops were disastrously recalled by infamous President Joe Biden, leaving no hope of rescue for the thousands of Christians left behind. Immediately following the American abandonment, Taliban soldiers went door to door looking for Christian leaders, anyone outspoken in their faith and or critical of the new regime. No one knows for sure how many Christians are left in Afghanistan, but the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom estimates there are between 10,000 and 12,000 remaining under the Taliban rule of terror as of January 2022. An organization called Open Doors, which is a liaison for persecuted Christians throughout the world, compiles data such as incidences of kidnapping, torture, and murder to make an annual list ranking the top 50 nations where it is difficult to impossible to live as a Christian. Afghanistan now tops this list, displacing North Korea, which had for 20 years been the #1 worst place on earth to be a Christian. Just so you know, here are the top 20 nations right now where you hide your Christianity or face possible martyrdom. Afghanistan, North Korea, Somalia, Libya, Yemen, Eritrea, Nigeria, Pakistan, Iran, India, Saudi Arabia, Myanmar, Sudan, Iraq, Syria, Maldives, China, Qatar, Vietnam, and Egypt. Out of these top 20, 13 suffer from Islamic oppression of all other religions, but especially Christianity. 3 of these are communist, and 4 suffer from tribal strife. Out of the top 50 Christian-hating nations, 30 are due to Islamic oppression. We like to think that the persecution of Christians is a part of history, misty stories of long ago, wrapped in a kind of glory that no longer exists. And there are those who don't want us to know any different. You won't hear about this persecution on the nightly news, but it's a reality for many Catholics right now. Like St. Eustatius, whose feast day we honored on Tuesday, there are fathers this very day in places such as Afghanistan, Nigeria, and China who choose daily between life and possible death for themselves and their families if they practice their faith. If anyone finds out, if a child slips and mentions Mass to a friend, or someone finds a rosary and links it to them, the result can end in a social credit docking, depending on where you are, or it can result in the removal of the children, their mother and father sent to prison, or it can end in instant death. The idea of a trial is a fairy tale to most of these Christians. No one stands up for them, We rarely even hear about them, but we can pray for them. Though the Mercedarian Order is no longer operating as founded, Our Lady of Ransom still watches over every single soul suffering on account of her Son. And it's incumbent upon us in the most fundamental kind of charity to beg her intercession, to pray for these poor people, for their temporal safety, and for the strength of their resolve if worst comes to worst, that they save their souls most of all, even if it means they join the ranks of the martyrs in heaven. A glorious fate, not as rare as we might like to think. And last but not least, it would behoove us to pray to Our Lady of Ransom and to all the unknown martyrs of our century, that if we find ourselves in a like situation, they will pray us into heaven too. Our Lady of Ransom, have mercy on all those who suffer for the faith. Pray for us all. Blessed be God, and his angels, and in his saints.